I came to claim your throne." The Northern Alpha King arrived with a cursed pact and a mocking smile. Exactly the kind of man she swore she would never allow near her. 7 years ruling alone, and a single glance was enough for her wolf to answer his, something that infuriated her. He loved seeing her irritated. She hated that he was so dangerously irresistible. And when she saw him get jealous of her, something he had never felt for any woman, she realized that King carried more than arrogance under his skin. It planted a doubt she never wanted to face. Who is truly by her side? The beta who has loved her in secret all these years, or the king she swore she would despise? On the night they fought in the courtyard, with sparks and provocations bordering on forbidden, something inside her almost gave in. And now she understands. The true danger isn't the pact, but the forbidden desire threatening to break the defenses she vowed never to let crumble. Chapter 1. When Kael Andros, Alpha King of the Northern Lands, arrives in Isla's territory, winter seems to follow his footsteps. The air cools, clouds darken over the gray stone towers of the castle, and something in the atmosphere shifts, as if the kingdom itself recognizes a predator on its soil. Isla feels it before she sees him. She is seated on the black oak throne that belonged to her father, King Torvin, who died from health complications. Her fingers tap lightly on the armrest as she watches the double doors of the great hall. Lion stands beside her, like he has for the past 7 years, since the day she took the crown at 18. Lion is tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that have always watched her with a devotion she never questioned. He is her beta, her friend, the one constant in her life since everything changed. "He's late," Lion murmurs, his voice carrying barely disguised disapproval. "Maybe we should consider it a sign of disrespect." Isla doesn't answer right away. Her eyes stay fixed on the doors, waiting, sensing. There's something in the air that unsettles her inner wolf, a restlessness she can't name, one that makes no sense. She has ruled for 7 years. She's faced wars, betrayals, enemies who underestimated her ability to lead alone. Nothing intimidates her anymore. So why is her heart racing? The doors burst open with a low thud, and Kael Andros enters. Isla feels the impact like a physical blow. He is tall, taller than she expected, with wide shoulders that fill the doorway and a presence that seems to pull all the air out of the room. His hair is fair, tied in a half bun that lets loose strands fall over his eyes between green and gray, the color of melting ice, sweeping the room with a confidence so absolute it borders on arrogance. He wears black from cloak to boots and moves with the posture of someone who never needed to prove his power, because everyone already knows. Isla forces herself to stay still, to show nothing, but her wolf is howling inside her, pressing against her skin, demanding something she can't understand. What is this? Kael stops a few steps from the throne. His eyes lock with hers, and something passes between them, electric, impossible to ignore, dangerous. He doesn't bow, doesn't show submission or respect. He merely observes her as if evaluating, dissecting, deciding whether she's worth his time. Isla lifts her chin. "Kael Andros." Her voice is steady, controlled, untouched by the turmoil ripping through her. "They say you came to negotiate. I hope you brought something worthy of my time." His lips curve, not exactly a smile, more like the recognition of a challenge accepted. "Isla Torvin, the Wolf Queen." His voice is deep, carrying a subtle northern accent that makes every word sound heavier. "I've heard much about you. They say you're as fierce as your father." "They're telling the truth," Isla replies without hesitation. Kael takes a step forward. Lion moves instantly, protective, but Isla raises a hand to stop him. Kael's eyes flick briefly to Lion, a quick assessment, clear disinterest, before returning to her. "Then let's get straight to the point," Kael says, and something in the way he speaks makes Isla's stomach flip. It isn't nerves. It's anticipation, as if he knows something she doesn't, and he's about to place a card on the table that will change everything. I didn't come to negotiate, Queen Isla. The hall falls silent. Advisors exchange confused looks. Lion stiffens. Isla tilts her head slightly, eyes narrowing. Then why are you here? Kale extends a hand. One of his men, a scarred warrior with a soldier's posture, steps forward and places a sealed parchment into his palm. Kale holds it for a moment, eyes still locked on hers, before offering it to her. I came to collect. The words drop like stones into still water. Isla feels her whole body tense, but she forces her expression to remain neutral as she descends the steps of the throne and takes the parchment from him. The contact is brief, fingers brushing, but enough for a wave of heat to shoot up her arm. She ignores it and focuses on breaking the seal. The mark is unmistakable, royal, authentic, and the signature, Torvin. Her father. Isla reads quickly, her heart pounding with each line. It's a pact, signed 7 years ago, a few months before Torvin's death. During the war, when the kingdom was surrounded with no resources on the verge of collapse, Kale, or rather, Kale's father, who ruled at the time but died soon after, leaving the young Kale as heir, sent troops, supplies, weapons, saved Torvin's kingdom from total destruction. In return, Torvin signed a lifelong debt. Whatever the Northern King demanded in the future, as long as it stayed within the boundaries of honor, would be granted without question. Isla feels her blood freeze. This can't be real. It is, Kale replies, his voice calm and unyielding. Authentic, verified by the Northern elders. Your father signed it, Queen Isla, and now I've come to claim what's owed to me. Lion steps forward, furious. You're lying. If such a pact existed, we'd know. Torvin would never hide something like that. Kale doesn't move, doesn't look away from Isla. Your king hid many things to protect his kingdom. This was one of them. He knew if the truth came out, your enemies would sense weakness, so he kept it secret, and he died before revealing it. Isla feels the world tilt. It can't be true, but the seal is there. The signature is there. And deep down, in a place she doesn't want to admit exists, she knows it makes sense. She remembers how the war suddenly shifted. How supplies began arriving when they shouldn't have. How enemy forces retreated without explanation. My father made a pact, and I never knew. What do you want? The question comes out lower than she intended, but firm. Kale steps forward, and another step, and another until he's close enough that she has to tilt her head to meet his eyes. He's massive up close, intimidating, but Isla doesn't step back. A marriage alliance, he says, the words dropping like a verdict. The hall erupts into whispers. Advisors rise, protesting. Lion moves again, but Isla lifts her hand, stopping him cold. You're demanding that I marry you, she says, emotionless. Yes. Why? For the first time, something flickers across Kale's face, quick, nearly imperceptible and suspiciously close to vulnerability. Because my kingdom is in danger. Nomad clans from the mountains are pushing against my borders. Alone, I won't withstand them. I need allies. I need armies. I need a union that will force my enemies to back off. He pauses. And the pact gives me the right to demand exactly that. Isla studies him, searches for lies, manipulation, anything she could use against him. But all she sees is cold determination. He isn't asking, he's demanding, and he has the legal right to do so. Damn you, father, what have you done? I need time, she finally says. You have 3 moons, Kale replies without hesitation. After that, you either honor the pact, or I reveal your refusal to all neighboring kingdoms. And you know what will happen. Your credibility will crumble. A queen who doesn't honor her father's debts doesn't deserve to rule. It's a threat, clear, brutal, effective. Lion explodes. You son of a lion. Isla's voice cuts the air like a blade. He stops, shaking with rage, but obeys. She turns back to Kale, forcing every muscle of her body to stay calm, controlled. 3 moons, you'll have them. But until then, you'll remain in this castle as a guest, under watch. Kale smiles, a small, dangerous smile that makes something deep inside her clench. As you wish, Queen Isla. He gives a slight bow, more mockery than respect, and withdraws, his men following. Isla watches him leave, feeling the weight of every gaze in the court on her. When the doors close, Lion approaches, his voice low and urgent. Isla, you can't seriously be considering this. He's manipulating you. There's no real proof the North saved our kingdom. This could be a setup. Isla looks at the parchment in her hands, at her father's signature, and something breaks inside her. It's not a setup, she whispers. I recognize the signature and the seal. It's authentic, Lion. Then what do we do? Isla closes her eyes for a moment. When she opens them again, cold determination gleams there. We find the truth about the pact. About Cale, about everything. She turns to him, her voice dropping to something softer, more vulnerable. Because if this is real, then I have no choice. Lion takes her hands, forcing her to meet his gaze. You always have a choice, Isla, always. But while he says that, while he tries to reassure her, all Isla can feel is the echo of Cale's presence still vibrating in the air. His scent, his heat, the way her wolf reacted when their eyes met. What is happening to me? That night, Isla cannot sleep. She stands on the balcony of her chambers, watching the courtyard below where some of Cale's men made camp. They are different from her own soldiers, wilder, rougher, with scars that tell stories of countless battles. And in the middle of them, tall and imposing, even seated by the fire, is Cale. He seems to feel her stare. He lifts his head slowly, his eyes finding hers across the distance and darkness. Isla should look away. She should step inside, close the curtains, pretend she wasn't watching. But she doesn't. She stays there, trapped in his gaze, feeling something impossible rise inside her, something that feels dangerously like recognition. Who are you, Cale Andros? And more importantly, why do I feel like I should already know? Chapter 2. The days following Cale's arrival turn into a silent war, waged through the stone corridors of the castle. The morning after the pact was presented, Isla summons a private council meeting. The faces around the table are tense, worried. Lion stands at her right, as always, his eyes fixed on her with that unshakable loyalty that grounds her. We need to verify the authenticity of the document, declares one of the elder counselors, Alistair, who served Isla's father long before she was born. We cannot simply take his word for it. I already have, Isla answers, her voice sounding more tired than she intended. She spent the entire night in the archives, consulting old records, comparing seals. The document is authentic. The signature is my father's. The royal seal is intact. A heavy silence falls over the room. But that doesn't mean we must obey it blindly, Lion interjects, his voice firm. We can question the terms, search for loopholes, argue that. The door bursts open. Cale enters without ceremony, his steps echoing through the stone chamber. Two of his men follow, the scarred warrior and a younger one with dark hair and sharp, alert eyes. Isla feels anger rise instantly. This is a private council meeting, she says, her voice ablade. You were not invited. Cale stops at the entrance, crossing his arms over his broad chest. There's that small smile on his lips, the one already beginning to deeply irritate her. Ah, but I should have been. And why is that? Because, Cale replies, walking slowly toward the table, the pact not only gives me the right to demand a marital alliance, it also grants me participation in all political decisions while the pact remains active. He stops on the opposite side of the table, directly in front of Isla. Your father was very meticulous when drafting the terms, Queen Isla. Torvin knew that if I provided such significant resources, I would need guarantees that they'd be used properly. So he gave me a voice. Until the debt is paid or the pact is broken, I have the right to be present in every meeting of this council. Isla's blood turns cold. That is, Clause 9 if you'd like to check, Cale interrupts calmly. Alistair reaches out and takes the parchment. The elder reads quickly, and Isla sees the defeat in his face before he even speaks. "He is correct," Alistair confirms, his voice heavy with regret. "The clause is clear. While the pact is active, the King of the North has consultative participation in council meetings addressing political, military, or relevant commercial matters." Consultative participation, Isla repeats, clinging to the word like a lifeline. "Meaning you may offer opinions, not that your opinions are binding." "True," Kale agrees, pulling out a chair and sitting without being invited. "But it means you cannot exclude me, and it means everything discussed here, I will know." He leans back in the chair with a relaxed posture that borders on insolent. "So, what were we discussing?" Lion stands abruptly, his hands slamming against the table. "This is absurd. You cannot just Lion." Isla's voice is low but firm. He stops, trembling with fury, and obeys when she gestures for him to sit. Isla forces herself to breathe deeply. Every fiber of her being wants to expel Kale from that room, that castle, that kingdom. But he is right. The damn pact grants him this right. "Very well," she says at last, her voice controlled. "You may stay, but you'd better make sure your contributions are truly relevant, King Kale. I won't tolerate my time being wasted." Kale smiles, that small, dangerous smile that makes her stomach twist. "Don't worry, Queen Isla. I promise to make every meeting memorable." The meeting continues under a palpable tension. Isla tries to focus on kingdom matters, the autumn harvest, the border fortifications, the trade routes. But Kale's presence is like a stone in her boot, impossible to ignore. When she presents a report on the trade routes, Kale interrupts her mid-sentence. "Pardon me, Queen Isla." His tone is polite, but the glint in his eyes tells another story. "But these routes you mention, weren't they established only 2 years ago? As far as I know, before that your kingdom relied exclusively on the eastern lands." Isla presses her fingers into the oak table. He's right, and he knows he's right, and he's throwing it in her face in front of the entire council. "The routes were expanded," she replies, voice level. "We diversified our commercial alliances to avoid relying on a single kingdom." "Smart," Kale concedes, leaning back with that same infuriatingly relaxed posture. "Though late. Had you done that during the war, perhaps you wouldn't have needed external aid." The silence that follows is suffocating. Counselors avert their gaze, uncomfortable. Lion stiffens beside Isla, his fingers gripping the arm of his chair hard enough to make the wood creak. Isla smiles. It is not a kind smile. "Are you suggesting my father made strategic mistakes, King Kale?" "I'm saying," Kale replies, eyes gleaming with something dangerous, "that ruling in times of peace is easier than ruling in times of war. You inherited a kingdom already saved, Queen Isla. The question is, what would you have done if you'd faced what your father faced?" It's a blatant provocation. Isla feels anger crawl up her spine like fire, and something inside her, her wolf, growls low, wanting to lunge, to show this arrogant man exactly what she's capable of. Then she notices. He's smiling. Not the political smile he uses with the counselors. A genuine one. Small, almost imperceptible, but brightening his eyes in a way that makes her stomach drop. He likes this. The realization strikes her like lightning. Kale isn't trying to humiliate her. He's provoking her. On purpose, because he wants to see her angry, because he likes it when she loses her composure. Isla forces herself to relax. She leans back in her chair, mirroring his posture, folding her hands calmly on the table. "If I had faced what my father faced," she says, her voice smooth as silk, "I would never have signed a pact that placed my kingdom in another king's hands. I would have found a solution that didn't make me indebted to anyone." Kale's smile widens. Admirable confidence, dangerous arrogance. Says the man who crossed borders to collect a 7-year-old debt. Debt is debt, no matter how much time has passed. And pride is pride, no matter how desperate you are. Their eyes lock. The entire room seems to vanish. It is just Isla and Kale, matching strength across the table, neither willing to yield. Finally, Alistair clears his throat, visibly uncomfortable. Perhaps we should take a break. Isla doesn't look away from Kale. Excellent idea. When the meeting dissolves and the counselors begin to leave, Lion comes closer, speaking in a low, urgent voice. He's provoking you on purpose, trying to make you lose control in front of the council. Isla finally tears her gaze from Kale, who stands across the room speaking with one of his men, though his eyes remain locked on her. I know. Then why do you keep falling for it? It's a good question. Isla has no answer. Or rather, she does, but it's not one she wants to admit. Because when he provokes me, I feel alive. Because no one else dares to challenge me this way. Because I hate it and crave it at the same time. He's not going to manipulate me, she says instead. I'm in control. Lion touches her arm gently, turning her toward him. Genuine concern fills his eyes, the kind he's always had since they were children. Isla, you don't have to do this alone. I'm here, I've always been here, and I always will be. There is something in the way he says it, something beyond loyalty. Isla frowns slightly, studying his face. Lion holds her gaze a moment too long before looking away and releasing her arm. I'll dig further into the pact, he says, slipping back into professionalism. There must be something we can use, some loophole. Thank you, Lion. He smiles, that soft, familiar smile that has always comforted her, and walks away. Isla remains still for a moment, processing. But when she looks up again, Kale is still there, still watching. And when their eyes meet, he tilts his head slightly, as if saying round two is coming. The following days drag into a tense pattern. Kale remains in the castle as a guest, but his presence is felt in every corridor, every decision, every breath Isla takes. He doesn't attend every meeting, only the ones he deems relevant, but when he does, it's always with that infuriating, provocative smile. Isla begins anticipating his comments before he makes them, preparing sharp counterarguments. And Kale seems to notice, escalating his provocations in increasingly subtle and increasingly dangerous ways. One afternoon, while she inspects the ramparts, Kale appears uninvited. Checking if your defenses are up to standard, he asks, walking beside her with that confident posture she has grown grudgingly familiar with. Checking if I need to reinforce them against inconvenient intruders, Isla replies without looking at him. Kale laughs, a low, rough sound that makes something inside her tighten. Intruder, interesting word for a guest. You're not my guest, you're my creditor, there's a difference. For now. Isla stops walking, turning to face him. For now. Kale steps forward, closing the distance between them in a way that makes her heart pound. 3 moons, Queen Isla. You gave me 3 moons. 10 days have already passed. You're closer to the decision with every night you sleep without answering me. Perhaps I already know my answer. Perhaps, but you haven't spoken it. He tilts his head slightly, studying her with eyes that seem to pierce every defense she has. Why not? Because I don't know what to say. Because every time I look at you, something inside me breaks and reforms. Because my wolf is screaming things I don't know how to interpret. Because, Isla replies, lifting her chin, I enjoy watching you wait. The smile Kale gives her is predatory. Careful, Queen Isla. Making a wolf wait only makes him hungrier. And then he walks away, leaving her standing on the rampart, shaking with anger, and something else she refuses to name. Meanwhile, Lion watches everything from a distance. That night, he seeks Isla out in the library. She's seated near the fireplace, reading old documents, desperately searching for a loophole in the pact. Still nothing, Lion asks, closing the door behind him. Isla shakes her head, frustrated. My father was meticulous. Every clause is airtight. There's no escape. Lion steps closer, kneeling beside her chair. Isla, you don't have to do this alone. She looks at him, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes. I know, Lion, and I'm grateful. I don't know what I'd do without you. Something flickers across his face, something intense, vulnerable. He lifts his hand as if to touch her face, but pulls back at the last moment. You deserve better than this, he says softly. Better than being forced to marry a stranger because of an old pact. I have no choice. You always have a choice. Lion takes her hands into his, and there's something in the way he touches her that makes Isla frown slightly. If you refuse the pact, I'll stand by you. We'll face the consequences together. His tone is different, deeper, more personal. Isla studies his face, trying to understand, but Lion looks away before she can decipher it. Thank you, she says at last, but I can't drag you into this. It's my burden, my decision. Lion squeezes her hands one last time before standing. At the door, he turns. Just, don't trust him, Isla, no matter what he says. Men like Cale always have hidden motives. And then he leaves, closing the door behind him. The news of the ball arrives as a sudden decision from the council, an ancient tradition that cannot be ignored, especially in uncertain times. It is a way to show strength, to demonstrate to neighboring kingdoms that Isla rules with confidence and stability, immune to external pressure. Isla spends the afternoon preparing, allowing her ladies-in-waiting to braid her hair into elaborate plaits threaded with silver. The gown she selects is champagne-colored, with intricate golden embroidery across the bodice. When she enters the ballroom, conversations halt, nobles bow, and across the room, near the marble columns, Cale freezes mid-sentence. His eyes find hers through the crowd, and something crosses his face, something quick, intense, gone before she can name it. But it was enough to make her heart stumble. No, I won't think about that, not tonight. Lion approaches almost immediately, immaculate in his formal beta attire, his loose hair slightly tousled. A soft smile touches his lips as he bows before her. My queen, he says, his voice holding something more intimate than the title suggests. May I have the honor? He extends his hand. Isla hesitates for a fraction of a second, not because she doesn't want to dance with Lion, but because she feels the weight of Cale's gaze from across the room. And God's help her, she likes it. She likes knowing he's watching, likes the power it gives her. She places her hand in Lion's. The honor is mine. They move toward the center of the ballroom as the music begins, a soft, traditional melody Isla has known since childhood. Lion guides her with familiarity, his hand steady and respectful on her waist. You look stunning tonight, Lion murmurs, his voice low enough for only her to hear. Thank you, Isla smiles, trying to focus on the dance, on the music, on anything except the burning presence of Cale that she feels even without looking at him. Across the ballroom, Cale feels something dangerous ignite inside him. His wolf growls low, an instinctive fury he has never felt before, not in battles, not during betrayal.